Well, thank you so much for dropping your introductions in the chat, y'all. I'm very excited to introduce this webinar to you all today. This webinar has been a piece in the making for a while as part of the global partnership between UN Ocean Decade Early Career Ocean Professionals Program and SOA, Sustainable Ocean Alliance, on a global level. Over the past 6 months, we've developed the Learning Tide series, where each of the regional nodes of the ECOP network and each of the regional communities of SOA have gotten together for exciting webinars on topics ranging from plastic pollution to storytelling and more, in places like the Caribbean, Southeast Asia, Latin America, Africa, Europe, and more. Today, we are bringing you our installment for North America: how to be a community resilience warrior in the face of ocean hazards. My name is Mark Shaver. I'm calling in from Playa del Carmen, Mexico, and I'm with Sustainable Ocean Alliance. If you haven't heard about SOA, we're one of the world's largest network of young ocean leaders, with over 7,000 young ocean leaders in over 180 countries. We have incredible hubs from coast to coast, including Hawaii in the US as well. And we're very excited to be able to support young people by elevating their voices, providing micro grants through an ecopreneur network and through our community building initiatives. We strongly believe in the power of young people, and we believe that we as young people have the power to restore the health of the ocean in our lifetime. I'm really excited to be here with our partners ECOP-US and ECOP Canada today. This is a really exciting start for our relationship with ECOP-US. ECOP Canada has been a great partner with our Canada Ocean People Network. But I'm not going to take their thunder. I'm going to pass the mic to our friends at ECOP-US to introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, I'm Selena. I'm one of the 2 people here that are serving to help coordinate. I think I don't see Hannah's name showing up. But
Hi,
I'm hoping the audio works.
Yeah, sorry, I'm having trouble with the video, so I can't tell if you can see me or not. But I'm Hannah LaChance. I also am one of the folks helping to coordinate the newly established US ECOP node. We launched in the summer, around May, and then we've got a Slack channel, and we've got a little over 300, actually probably close to 400 ECOPs now from all across the US and beyond who have joined our network, and we're looking forward to having more opportunities such as today's webinar for that community and other cool opportunities like this, such as meetups at conferences and in person, etc. So thanks for joining, and we hope to see more of you all soon.
Hey y'all, my name is Aneri Garg. My pronouns are she, her. I'm one of the administrators at ECOP Canada, and Ashley Bose is also here today and put their intro in the chat. Yes, all hail Ashley. Ashley's been pivotal in the foundation of ECOP Canada, along with the steering committee from 2 years ago. And we have a new steering committee starting now just a month ago about. So lots of exciting projects coming out of ECOP Canada. We also exist in a Slack channel as a network across Canada and are growing, and our aim is to connect early career ocean professionals with opportunities in the blue economy, and also looking at opportunities for training and to remove barriers for folks. And of course, making connections like the ones through this webinar today. I will be moderating today's session. And just so we are clear a little bit on how this is going to go, the first half of today's webinar will be a panel discussion between our panelists. And the second half will have the opportunity to go into breakout rooms with the panelists, maybe to learn a little bit more about what they do, but to reflect and think a little bit about the themes of today's webinar in your own lives. But I just wanted to start with a land honoring. And for those who maybe are unfamiliar, This is a practice, at least at ECOP Canada, that we are trying to integrate as an organization to shift the culture and think about decolonization. I'm a settler living in Canada. Right now, I'm joining you from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. So that's on Treaty 6 territory. And this is the lands of the Cree, the Dakota, Nakota, and Lesotho. And it's also the homeland of the Métis. And just in addition to naming some of these lands, I'd love to share a little bit about my relationship in this space and encourage you to think a little bit about your relationship in the place that you're joining from, or usually live, work, and call home or travel to. And for me, one of the things that I find really special about this place is the river. I like to go for walks with my family there. It's the South Saskatchewan River, and it's a way I can think about how I'm connected to the ocean and to the other freshwater and other water bodies around the world. So I say this just as a little bit of a reminder that we're all ocean people, no matter where we're joining from lakes, rivers, ponds, and of course, coasts and islands. Just a reminder, this is being recorded today. It'll go on YouTube, so if you know somebody who can't make it, don't sweat. We will be sending the link out to all of you to share amongst your networks. And without further ado, I'm going to start by letting today's panelists introduce themselves. And we'll start with Amanda, if you could please go first.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Amanda. I'm based on Fogo Island, Newfoundland, which is on the northeast coast of Canada and on the traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq and the Beothuk. I am a program manager of environmental initiatives at Shorefast. So Shorefast, we are a registered charity, and ultimately our mission is to unleash the power of place so that local communities can really thrive in a global economy. So a lot of this is done through on-the-ground experience, research, and collaboration, and we promote sustainable models for community economic development that serve the full ecosystem of life. So I manage a set of multi-pronged initiatives that creates and shares new ways to care for the health of our coastal and oceanic ecosystems that also supports the culture of the people whose lives and livelihoods are directly linked to the sea as well. So the role I play is more to create and bridge connections between communities and other networks to support sustainable economic development through environmentally regenerative means and conservation. I'll pass it to Grey.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm so excited to be here with our ECOP friends. I am here representing Sustainable Ocean Alliance as a young ocean leader today and as a hub founder for SOA Charleston. I am a documentary filmmaker and mission-based storyteller based out of the southeastern United States, and the founder of two nonprofits, Enduring Curiosity and the Carolina Ocean Alliance. One of the main areas that I try to work in is how can I make solutions more accessible for ordinary people? How can I create ways through stories or through partnerships or through immersive experiences that can give people a sense of agency in facing the great challenges that are impacting each of our communities today? And how can I transform what is often seen as a hopeless endeavor into something that can be fueled through love, can be fueled through curiosity, and can be fueled through, in the end, hope. So I'm excited to be here with these panelists today and to be able to meet with each of you, to be able to speak with each of you about your water stories, about the communities that you love, that you advocate for every day. And I'll hand it off to Bax.
Hey everyone, I'm Bax. I'm a research engineer at the Alaska Center for Energy and Power at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. A lot of my research focuses on saltwater marine energy, so both tides and waves. And I also work with communities with understanding their needs and how on our side we can adapt and test technology before deployment, and making sure that everything works, because Alaska is a pretty harsh place for a lot of technology. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. What a diversity of experiences and, of course, geographies. Today's webinar theme around ocean hazards and community resilience. These are pretty broad themes, and even just through the range in your work, it seems like can manifest in different ways. I was hoping we could start by just talking a little bit about what are ocean hazards and how do those show up in your work or in the communities that you work in, especially in relation to climate change. Amanda, if you wouldn't mind going first.
Yeah, that's no problem. So for me, ocean hazards are really just like ocean-related events that can have catastrophic effects to the culture of a community, as well as to its environmental or economic health. So personally for me, like I live in a rural coastal community. I live on an island, which is actually an island off an island. So in my community, there's a heavy reliance on the ocean that informs our culture, and ultimately like threats of ocean hazards and climate change that really has a lot of potential to really, I think, affect what a new norm for us kind of looks like.
For sure, yeah. Gray, how about yourself?
Well, I experienced, I guess, ocean hazards or hazards that come from a warming ocean beginning at a very young age. When we weren't being chased off by hurricanes, that we routinely had the ocean come to our front door. We lived downtown in a historic city in the Southeast, and when we had the right combination of floods or tides or rain or anything like that, the water would come up to our front steps, and our neighbor would come in his canoe and pick us up and take us to where we'd have to move our car that night. So that kind of flooding creates challenges for everyday life, and that's been something that's only gotten worse in our community over the last few decades. And with that, we see what the water then takes back out into the waterways. We see the pollution, we see the plastics, we see all of the things that the species that we rely on that are the basis of our culture and have been for the longest time, the basis of our tourism industry through our seafood, how those are being impacted, and how the entire way of life of our community is being threatened by an unhealthy relationship that we've developed with our waters.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gray. Max, how about for yourself?
So there's hazards here in Alaska that what we consider normal. So like storms, winter storms happen, and they've happened for as long as we've lived here. But the biggest hazard that I've noticed has been a lack of cold. A lack of cold means that the sea ice hasn't been established and doesn't protect the coast. Lack of cold means that permafrost is melting and people's land is literally being washed away to the ocean. And a lack of cold has caused the crab fishery collapse, and the salmon fishery collapsed. So the biggest hazard that I've seen here in Alaska is things becoming warmer, and that cascades down to a lot of different things that compromise people's not only safety but also health and subsistence.
Absolutely. And all of you have touched on economic, environmental, and cultural impacts of these ocean hazards. I guess as a follow-up, in the communities you live and work in, what does community resilience look like to you in spite or because of these ocean hazards? Or do you have any stories to share a little bit around that theme? Grey, maybe we'll start with you this time, or if somebody wants to jump in with an example.
Sure. Thank you. That is something that we are asking ourselves. What does community resilience look like? And when we're looking at that, we have to look at not just the human definition of community, but we also need to look at the biological definition of community as well. We need to look at all living species that are sharing the common area where we live, and the interconnected webs of life that sustain that existence. And resilience for people doesn't necessarily mean resilience for marine species. So at the moment, one of the major proposals happening at the government level is a plan to build a large 12-foot concrete wall around the entire peninsula that we live in. And that would devastate any and all salt marsh and tidal creek habitat that would be anywhere around the peninsula, and would further degrade the type of habitat that our coastal species need as their nurseries, as places where their lives begin, and where so much of what is going into the waterways is able to be filtered before it goes into the ocean. So resilience needs to look like us, in some cases, having humility and realizing that maybe this place where we built isn't an appropriate place to be, or maybe this place where we put a road should actually be a salt marsh creek, which it was 100 years ago, and maybe it should be that again. And it should be a reevaluation of how we approach water as being something we try to control, to being something that we try to live with. We try to have a respectful relationship with, and figure out how we can be a better partner to the ocean and the coastal ecosystems, be a better neighbor in that case as well.
Yeah, Baxter, Amanda, do you have thoughts around community resilience in your work or areas?
Yeah, I can jump in on that. So I think that community resilience, like there needs to be both the willingness to be proactive, as well as like adapting to changing times. Like I think that's something that needs to be considered at the forefront of community resilience. I feel like it seems pretty obvious, but I don't think many of us really understand how uncomfortable it is to remove ourselves from our learned habits and try to reroute our ways of thinking until we are put in a vulnerable situation. So just reflecting back on my experience and bringing it back to my community, Newfoundland, the province as a whole, there's a lot of history with the province, and it's honestly it's been through a lot of trauma. So from the mismanagement of our cod fishery leading to a moratorium in the 90s that caused a mass out-migration, along with the rural nature of the province, where there's always a constant threat of resettlement, which climate refugees face today too. Fogo Island, along with many other communities, weren't really given a choice but to adapt to a changing economy and society. Personally, in my work, I've been really fortunate to collaborate with individuals in my community who already see the need to be proactive because they had been put in reactive situations beforehand. So I think the need to be open-minded and self-reliant was reinforced in many ways throughout the province's history, both on and off island. And while there's always an initial reluctance, I think, in community when it comes to trying to initiate something new, finding common ground, and again, that willingness to be fluid in implementation is key. So I think there has been a lot of strategies that have been implemented in the past that have focused more on a top-down approach, and that has not necessarily been very successful in a lot of ways, I think. But also when you're trying to build something from the ground level, just because people might not jump in on an idea right away doesn't mean that it should be written off or considered a failure right away. There's nothing wrong with going back to the drawing board and figuring out where the opportunities for improvement lie. So I think there needs to be more fluidity, adaptability in how we identify like what community resilience can mean.
Very good points and lessons. I think that could apply to many communities in terms of adaptability. Bax, just wanted to hear if you have any thoughts on this matter as well.
Yeah, so the most successful projects that have happened in Alaska have been community-led and embraced by the community. On the other side, there have been a lot of failed projects that came from the top down, and they're sitting in disrepair right now. But one of the most successful stories of community has been through relationship building between the different parts of Alaska. So here in the interior, the salmon fishery has been closed since 2020. And salmon not only provides food, but it also provides cultural experience for across generations. And because the fishery has been closed for the past 4 years, there were people who had relatives out in Bristol Bay, and they brought a couple of totes of salmon here to the interior so that that cultural knowledge wouldn't be lost. So if we want things to be successful, we need to be in conversation with communities and have them be able to co-produce knowledge with us, and having that communication and collaboration is really key to having a successful project or event or what have you.
Right, so having that ongoing conversation, whichever community you're in, right? And you've all sort of touched on this need to be fluid, to be in communication for specific community resilience projects. I'm wondering if there is an opportunity to share maybe a specific project where you found community engagement worked really well, or some of the strategies that you used in your work in that engagement.
I guess I can start on that. I have a few examples of some projects that we had piloted on Fogo Island. So the first one I'll talk about is a community science program that we initiated to help monitor environmental conditions. So essentially the program trains community members and youth to engage in data collection and co-develop monitoring projects on environmental topics that they care about. So it started with more from a conservation and stewardship perspective, which is more related to the fishery side, but it also does have large climate change influence because our fisheries are changing. And so we had partnered with Marine Institute and Memorial University of Newfoundland to create validation, essentially, of the program and to help with community buy-in. So kind of taking this approach with a community-led monitoring project while helping develop community capacity to build up a skill set to, again, be more proactive instead of reactive. That's worked out really well so far. And we also want to essentially improve response mechanisms too for how we approach certain conservation or climate change related issues. But it's kind of hard to package and sell something like this when it only has a sole focus of, let's say, conservation. Because automatically when you talk to fishermen, if you're saying, oh, we want to work on a conservation or a monitoring project, they're going to automatically think, well, what's going to be in it for me? You're taking away my livelihood. You're trying to shut something down. So again, trying to build it from a community level and to position it as an economic development opportunity as well for them, because there is also money in research as well. So that, I think, like, ultimately, I think like we have the same goals, but it's how you communicate and present it that's going to be really key. But on top of that, like, we also have a large seaweed cultivation study too, again looking at the volatility of the fisheries now and the looming threat that climate change plays towards it. We want to look at ocean-based economic diversification opportunities that can build upon local skill sets and infrastructure that would also be environmentally regenerative. So when the project first started, it was co-created with fishers and community members from the very beginning, from where we were going to install our plots to the infrastructure that's used. We combined both academic and localized knowledge to mold how seaweed cultivation can look like in Newfoundland. And why I bring this up is because I think most importantly, there always needs to be careful knowledge dissemination between academia and community. And I caution all of us when we think about this kind of work, or when you're thinking about building up or scaling out adaptation strategies, it's really easy to go in with a preconceived idea of what you think will be successful or what you think current priorities are and dictate action when you're not in a direct line of fire. So what this project taught us really was helping us to balance both sides and encouraged us to look at nature-based solutions as more than just an environment-only project. So again, if we only listened to academics, we would have never built any community buy-in. If we only move forward with this as an environmental project, except instead of coupling it with an economic diversification opportunity, we would have never been able to sustain a project like this in the long run either. So from that localized knowledge, we've been able to build buy-in and literally had fishers who volunteered their time in an active fishing season because they wanted to see a project like this succeed. And that would have never happened if we didn't start at a community level. And if we just went in and said, this is the lines we're going to deploy, and this is where we're going to put the plots, and this is how you're going to do the project, I don't think we would have been able to be as successful as we have in this.
Totally, that's amazing. And what an amazing example of the partnerships and very strategic communication that you've used to engage in community. Bax, you also have some really interesting work in remote communities around energy. How has this sort of interaction or projects manifested in your work?
I think that, so beyond the science and engineering side, some of the most meaningful relationship building is just going out to the community and not even like interviewing or like none of what we consider as like work, but just going out and being with the community and just like being a part of the community by doing cultural activities like ice fishing, fish processing, and actually kind of just living a day in the life of the community, because that helps build trust and that helps build good good relationships. So I think thinking beyond just what we consider as work is also really, really important for this sort of these sorts of things.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good point. I think appealing to the humanity also of like, yeah, I'm sure I'm here doing work, but I'm also here as a human and interested and invested in you as another human. Yeah, I agree. What about yourself?
I completely agree with Amanda and Bax, especially about the importance of bottom-up approach that is, local solutions led by or guided by local people, local knowledge. And I think if we're ever going to stabilize and begin the long process of creating regenerative solutions for our planet, we need to see those sorts of local grassroots solutions happening on a global scale. And so I'm excited to hear that kind of work is being done in other parts of the world. And I encourage people who are on this call today to consider going out and finding the people who are working on the water or with the water every day, people who are engaging with the ocean or engaging with intersectional industries or intersectional impact areas that touch the ocean in some way. And that's a lot of how I approach this. I'm not like my colleagues in doing specific science-based projects or specific interventions. My work is more about building coalitions. It's more about bringing people together. So a couple of weeks ago, we had an event that we hold at the end of September every year called the Hope Summit. And our goal is to bring together as many local and regional solutions practitioners as we can, students, local stakeholders, politicians, anybody who's interested in getting involved, and have an intersectional and multidisciplinary discussion about what is facing our community, what's facing our neighboring communities, and how we can work in ways that may be seen as non-traditional or innovative through the partnerships we can make by bringing historical context or bringing cultural context or bringing new ways of looking at problems to the people who are out there working on restoring oyster reefs or working on renourishing our barrier islands or dealing with flood resilience or dealing with our declining blue crab or flounder fisheries that are impacted by the changing temperature of our waterways. We need to look at we need to look for new opportunities for ideas and new opportunities for messaging as well. So a big part of this is understanding that we've reached only a very small part of our community, or we're underserving a significant part of our community as far as the education that we need to be doing. And that has two problems. One, that is preventing people from, making a positive difference if they want to. And secondly, it is making the people who want to make a difference feel like they have no power. They have no ability to be the change they want to see in their world. They feel like they have no power to create the type of community that they want for their children, for their grandchildren, for future generations. And so a key part of the event, on top of doing a conference, we also have a festival where we host dozens of local organizations that are working in everything from water quality advocacy to lobbying at the State House, to working on regenerative aquaculture. So figuring out how by putting oyster cages in the water column, we're not only beginning to clean up those waterways, but bring life back and bring erosion control and bring resilience back to these creek ecosystems at the same time. And so that's a big part of it. It's experiential storytelling, and it's a way to immerse ordinary people in experiences, in places, in things that they may feel familiar with, but they may only be experiencing at a very surface level. It's about changing how they see that part of the world. And one of the ways we do that on top of the Hope Summit is by assisting in beach cleanups, because while we may not be able to stem, the tide of ocean plastic just with beach cleanups, we're able to show people the types of things that are going into the ocean, the types of issues that we have with plastic, the issues we have with our waste stream, so people can be more conscious consumers. The next time they go to the store, they can say, oh, well, I saw this kind of packaging the last time I was there. Maybe I don't need to buy that thing. Or they start noticing how much of it is in their neighborhood and around the places where they live. And it just continues to build awareness, and it leads people to deepening their stewardship values for the place that they care about.
Thanks, Gray. Yeah, using that storytelling and events to bring people together sounds very transformative, and then to encourage people towards action. Lovely examples of all the work that you're doing, and the three of you. I'm mindful of the time, and I want to give folks the opportunity to, in breakout rooms, have some conversations with you one-on-one, maybe share some ideas on how they are approaching this in their own work. So what we're going to do now, I'm just going to post a link in the chat. This is a Jamboard. If you want, you can use these in your breakout room discussions. And we're going to start the breakout rooms now. Those will be, you'll have the opportunity to choose which one you join, and they're labeled by region. And we'll join back here in about 15 minutes just to close off the webinar.
All right, I'm going to be opening these breakout rooms. It looks like they're open, right? You guys should be able to go to the breakout rooms feature and join. Cool. I'll wait here just if anyone has any problems. But see you guys soon. Enjoy. They're going to be cut off. And one thing I forgot to mention for our group, I didn't come in at the beginning, so maybe Amanda already said, but as part of our Jamboard, we have like a contact slide. So if you'd like to stay in touch with each other, take a look at the Jamboard and add your contact information to one of the sticky notes. So that way you all can stay connected after today's webinar.
Sorry, we got cut off Pacific group, but happy to follow up more via email if you'd like.
Yeah, I'm going to link that. Oh, the Jamboard is there. So just a reminder, if you'd like to be connected with folks from your region, in that Jamboard, feel free to add that little sticky note with your name, affiliation, contact number. It seems like there's some great conversations that unfortunately were cut off because of timing today that could carry on beyond this space.
Who learned something new? Does anyone want to go off mic and share something that they learned today? Yes, Edward with a raised hand.
Yeah, so I learned from Baxter that over in the Arctic there's like I'd heard about rumors in it in like the Antarctic, and I saw like rumors about it in headlines, but I don't really understand the mechanism. He explained it when sort of a lot of the ice will melt. A lot of biogases go up into the atmosphere and sort of cause like a global warming to keep accelerating like exponentially. And I feel like if someone were to like go to these spots and like capture all that gas, like I think that could be used for energy, So I sort of learned something. I got on a new lane today.
Cool. Thanks for sharing, Edward, and thanks for sharing your knowledge, Bax. Anyone have another nugget of knowledge they'd like to share before we close out? Aw, you guys are just so overwhelmed with how much knowledge you got. But thank you so much for joining today. I hope you did learn a lot as part of our Learning Tide series. Once again, as you've noticed, between the UN Ocean Decade Early Career Ocean Professionals and between our Young Ocean Leader Network, we have a lot in common. We're an aligned constituency that all of us wants to see a more sustainable and a regenerative for our generation and for future generations. So consider joining our mutual networks. If you're a constituent of one, maybe you'd be a nice fit for the other network as well. We'll be sure to do a follow-up with the recordings of this webinar, the Jamboard, and the links so that you can learn more about ECOP US, ECOP Canada, and SOA. Thanks again so much, everyone, for spending some time with us on a Monday.
Thanks all. Bye.
Thank you.